Well, hello everyone. Welcome back. Welcome back to Shannon Q. I am Shannon Q. My computer had a conniption fit, and unfortunately, my last stream um, ended up going away. So it's still up now, but ultimately I'm going to private both of these, and I will cobble them together and re-upload them as one unified front. So you guys have VIP access. You guys get to see something that nobody else will see, which is all of the horrifying tech issues that are taking place in the back end. Thank goodness I have this wine. Everything is fine. It's fine. Everything is fine. Sorry, my computer just decided no camera anymore for reasons that I can't even begin to comprehend. But I still have more things to say about this, and I will persevere. I will persevere. I will not let the god of technology thwart me from my atheist mission. Not today, Satan. Not today. All right, so for those of you who are just tuning in and are like, what the heck is going on? This is brand new to me. I had started a previous stream. It's still loaded on the channel. If you want to go see it after this, you've probably got about 20 minutes after this is over to go look at it before I set it to private. But we are covering Stand to Reason. So Stand to Reason did a video about how Christians need to be countercultural because they're just so persecuted, and the reason that they are persecuted is because they can't tell other people how to live their lives. And I've restarted my computer and queued everything back up, and I am ready to continue talking about it. So I'm hoping that you guys are all finding your way over here. Thank you for everybody who is dedicated enough to find their way from the other stream to this stream, because I still have a lot more to say about what Jon Noyes has to say. So sorry, my camera's a little bit off center. We cobbled it together as quickly as we could. And I thank you all for your kindness and forgiveness when it comes to the tech issues. At least I had sound. That's big for me. That's big for me. Who needs a camera, right? When you have sound. Big deal. Oh, I see you in the chat. Hello. Hello, hello. All right, so this is Jon Noyes for anybody who is just tuning in. And Jon is one of the bros from Stand to Reason, who is in the midst of telling us all why Christians need to be countercultural, because society is against them. Society is against them. And we are going to continue where we left off with Jon here. So for anybody who is ready, let's go.
Is being the world. We should expect it.
He's saying we should
and keep in mind
expect
that the world knows
us.
nothing about peace. Certainly the peace that comes with knowing God, that peace that surpasses all understanding. They don't know about trusting a sovereign Lord. When the world acts like the world, remember, we're not dealing with light. We're dealing with darkness. And when darkness is dark, we have to stay.
The darkness is the worst. Oh, man. When the darkness is dark, my preference is the light darkness. The light darkness is the best kind of darkness. The darkness is intolerable. I can't stand the darkness.
Focused on our task. It's our job. It's your job, Christian, to be the light. Whether it's foregoing worldly approval, standing firm in our convictions, or remaining calm in all circumstances, be prepared to render to God that which is God's. And then when the test truly comes, when the powers of darkness press in on you from the structures of this world, we'll continue to do God's work, God's way.
So notice that the juxtaposition that he's using, where Christians are the light and everybody other than Christians are the darkness. And when the darkness comes in, being like anything that's not what they espouse to be in Christianity, they need to be the light, which is a call to action. They need to go out and do something about it. They need to speak up. They need to be the ones who are attempting to make the world godly. And that juxtaposition that he's using is purposeful, because they're in the right and everybody else is in the wrong, regardless of what they say. And notice again, he's talking about tone and cadence when it comes to addressing these topics and, remaining calm. And just before my other stream decided to implode upon itself, pardon me, I was going over how these tactics, these rhetorical tactics, are important to call out. They're important to call out because controlling cadence and controlling the manner in which you speak on a topic is a way of making yourself seem like the calm, rational one when the other people, the people who you're attempting to subjugate in many cases, and in this case, having an emotional reaction to you is then perceived as irrational as a result of the juxtaposition. So that's a purposeful tactic that's being used.
Friends, let's be reminded too here that underneath the surface of the visible world, a battle rages in the unseen realm. Dark, wicked, supernatural forces seek to rule the world by force. And the carnage, there's casualties, then they're all around us. No, this isn't a physical battle. It's spiritual. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, Paul says, but against the spiritual forces of wickedness in heavenly places.
Again, the juxtaposition. So Christians are absolutely in the right. They are good. They are the light. Anybody who is not a Christian is darkness. And now added layer, there's spiritual forces. So there's, bad forces. And he's going to get into discussing the devil here shortly, that are causing this to happen. There's abject evil. Abject evil is the reason that this is happening. It's not a matter of arguments. It's not that the person that you are attempting to subjugate or the people that don't believe like you are just, seeing things differently. They're being coerced. They're being coerced by the devil. There's demonic and dark forces at play here. So there's a supernatural component to this. And I often wonder how that works, right? So do the supernatural forces just stop at the door of Christians and say, oh, we can't get these guys. Can't get these guys. We can only get, atheists and people who believe in different religions and, agnostics. Those are the only people that we can somehow influence. Christians, we can't influence. It's just the strangest thing to me to appeal to this sort of supernatural component that's bringing people into darkness and having this impact on the world that's somehow simultaneously imperceptible and also apparently obvious. That's what you have to fight against. It's a way of making people who disagree with you it's a way of making them not just be in opposition to your ideas, but actually be evil. It's a way of controlling the perception to other them so much that they're perceived entirely as evil.
In this battle, Satan's weapons aren't bombs and bullets. They aren't raw power or demon possession either. His chief weapons are lies and deceptions. We've talked about this before.
Who's he lying to and deceiving in this case? I wondered about that too. Like, he's saying that it's the devil. So the devil is doing this. The devil is making society the way it is. And the devil is doing this by lying. Who is the devil lying to? Is the devil able to control my mouth, for example? Right now, is the devil somehow delivering a message through my mouth, unbeknownst to me? So the devil has the ability to control people, and at what scale also. So control how many people and how many people simultaneously. It just doesn't seem feasible in any sort of realistic sense to say, well, there's a supernatural monster that's making the world like this and we have to fight against it. makes you seem like you're righteous when in fact in and of itself it's utterly foolish as a concept. But it's a great way, if you buy into it, to just fully other those people, without making it seem like you actually are. So you're making it seem like those people are evil, but then you have the eject button that you can say, well, I'm not saying you're evil. It's society itself, which you're a part of, is under the influence of the devil, but you can't point to where the devil is exerting that influence. It's just an assertion that it's entirely unfounded and impractical.
The point, as I addressed the culture of cancellation or cancel culture. Yeah, sure. Satan can harm us physically. He can, and we see this all over Scripture, and sometimes he does. But most of the spiritual warfare that we encounter, though, it's not power encounters against Satan's physical attacks. Instead, it's truth encounters against his spiritual lies.
Who's he lying to, and how? So explain yourself.
In response, we don't respond with spiritual chest pounding. But instead, we respond with a gracious and sound and measured proclamation of the truth.
Again, he's talking about controlling.
See, you have to remember who Satan is. Jesus, he calls Satan a liar and the father of lies. He says there's no truth in him. He warns us that our battle is against a deadly foe who lies, cheats, and steals.
So, I'm not clear who he's fighting against here. He's fighting against the culture, and the problem with the culture is that they're now accepting more so of people who are trans and people who are gay and people who aren't Christian, and is becoming more pluralistic in that fashion. But that taking place is the result of the devil, but there's no explanation as to through what mechanism that's taken place, which leads me to believe that the devil must somehow simultaneously be influencing or controlling somehow everyone who isn't a Christian, which seems trivially foolish, because if the devil has that kind of power, why isn't he also controlling Christians? Like, what magic protection spell do you have as a Christian? Like, I'm a deconverted Christian, for example. Did I have the magic spell of protection up until I stopped believing? Was the devil able to make me stop believing? And if that's the case, why isn't he able to make you stop believing? Or did I stop believing organically because I couldn't rationalize it anymore? And then now I'm subject to the influence of the devil because I lost my magic protection spell. Like, none of this makes sense to me, but it's a fascinating sort of scare tactic that Christians use consistently while they're simultaneously othering people, because it's a way of, like I said, labeling people as the most evil thing that a Christian can think of, while simultaneously having the out of saying, well, I'm not saying it's you. I'm actually saying, you're just part of a culture that's been cultivated by the devil. But then I don't actually have to explain how it's been cultivated by the devil. I can just assert it. And that's terrifying enough to Christians that they'll see you as evil, but I have the out of not saying you're evil myself, just, implying it by affiliating you and people like you with the devil.
You see, the devil's deceptions, Paul calls them schemes in Ephesians 6:11.
More devil.
And they're sophisticated strategies he uses to gain a foothold, to exert his influence over people.
How?
Satan, he preys on those not ready for combat, and his plans, it's working. We just have to look all around. Currently, the culture's...
Oh, so that's interesting. So he's saying the devil preys on people who aren't ready for combat. So maybe that's a susceptibility metric. If you're a Christian who's ready for combat, who's willing to take up arms and like join him in his fight, then you aren't susceptible to the devil influencing you anymore. So the only way you can't be a passive Christian. You can't just be a Christian who believes and minds their own goddamn business. You need to be a Christian who's willing to take up arms with him in order to reduce your susceptibility to the devil. And that also means that he can vilify and affiliate other Christians, other practicing Christians who affirm that they're Christians. He can affiliate them with the devil too. Because he can now say, well, they weren't willing to take up arms. The devil is influencing them. The only people the devil isn't influencing are people who are, arm in arm with me in the battle. Interesting tactical choice.
In the crushing grip of three of Satan's cons: moral relativism, religious pluralism, and sexual progressivism.
Okay, so we already knew he thought sexual progressivism. We already knew he thought that was, Satan's work and bad. Like he's established that pretty thoroughly. And moral relativism, we know most Christians, even Christians who aren't like him, are gonna espouse to that. But the interesting thing to me was that he said religious pluralism, and this set my brain going in circles because I couldn't figure out for the life of me how that could be the case. So he's saying that the devil is the reason for religious pluralism, which means, the fact that more than a religion exists that people believe in. However, Jesus was Jewish. Jesus was a Jew. So that religion not only existed before Christianity, but the Lord and Savior of Christianity believed it. But it is a very separate religion from Christianity. So what did the devil do? Did the devil make Christianity then? Did the devil make Christianity because that's the only way that it makes sense, because the Abrahamic monotheistic religion prior to Christianity was Judaism. So Judaism predates Christianity. So Christianity coming into existence, even if you ignore all other religions that predated and coexisted with it, created a pluralistic version of Abrahamic monotheism. So if he's saying that the devil is the reason for religious pluralism, then it would stand to reason that Christianity is the work of the devil if you follow his logic. It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense. I understand what he's getting at. He's trying to say that any religion that isn't Christianity is the work of the devil. They're bad, they're evil, and and the devil is deceiving people. But I don't think he thought it through. I really don't think he thought it through. Because Jesus was a Jew. Sorry, I choked myself because it just seems, I don't know, maybe I'm alone in that. But that follows in my mind. I don't know, at me or comment in the comment box down below. But that seems to me to be what he's saying. The devil's responsible for religious pluralism, ignoring all other religions that predate Christianity. Judaism predates Christianity. The invention of Christianity created a pluralistic version of Abrahamic monotheism. If the devil's responsible for pluralism, then what? Right? I don't think he thought that through. Anywho, whatever. That one just struck me as funny. We already know the moral. I'm not going to get into the moral side of things today. I don't have enough time to get into talking about that. That's a whole nother ball of wax. And he will talk more about all of our sexual misconduct very shortly. So don't worry, he's getting to it.
And we see the results. The results of his schemes are everywhere. For example, many of the commercials during the Olympics this year featured gay, lesbian, and transgender
He's about to fly
people
off the
in
rails.
relationships. Lies of...
Did you hear that? Did you hear that? Many of the commercials during the Olympics, they told us that trans people exist and gay people, and that sometimes they have relationships. That's the devil. happy people minding their own business in relationships. Wow. That's... Whoa. The world is evil.
Satan creeping into the homes on prime time television. Amazon Prime, Netflix, and Disney all feature movies depicting similar themes. You know, and no one's out of reach. Tragically, even our children are targets. In 2017, Disney introduced a lesbian couple in the cartoon feature Doc McStuffins. And last year, I was watching.
If you had given me 100 years, a million guesses about where this was going to go, I would not even have come close to predicting that the devil was influencing the production team at Doc McStuffins. Not a chance. There's just no chance. There's just no chance that I would have landed Doc McStuffins is where this is going. 0% chance. And it's just like, so what? Like, I don't understand why. Well, I kind of do understand why. It just annoys me. People like John here are so upset that people who are gay and trans are just depicted as existing as a component of material reality in the realm of entertainment, which is attempting to depict the realm of material reality. Why wouldn't they? Why would they not? Why would they not? Unless you were actively attempting to suppress that so that people weren't exposed to the fact that they exist as a component of material reality. That is the only reason. That is the only reason that you would be shocked by that, is that you think that should be suppressed. It's bonkers to me. Just absolutely bonkers to me.
Watching The Babysitter's Club with my little kids, my daughters, on Netflix, and they introduced a little boy character who believed he was a little girl.
You mean a trans
and
girl?
Most recently, Blue's Clues. My kids had it on upstairs. They had a family pride parade hosted by a drag
That sounds
queen.
Awesome.
The celebration highlighted families with lesbian mothers, gay fathers, and parents who are non-binary, trans, aseflex, bisexual, and pansexual. The creators even included a cartoon beaver with chest scars from a double mastectomy. All these programs, by the way, were rated TVG, aimed directly at our children.
Okay, so I have a significant amount to say about this, so I'm going to go on the screen. So I had a conversation earlier about this because what frustrates me is this perception that people who aren't cishet existing on screen anywhere isn't something that's acceptable for children. Because that is not something that heterosexual relationships are on screen, or heterosexual representation on screen, or, cis representation on screen is subject to, at all. It's not something that is the case when it comes to cishet representation. So what that tells me is, let's use an example. This is an example I used earlier in a conversation about this while I was following Paul around the house, driving him insane about how bad this bothered me. So let's use an example everybody is familiar with. So we're going to use Full House, right? So most people know what Full House is. So Bob Saget lived with two other men, right? So he lived with John Stamos and he lived with Dave Coulier. John Stamos was his brother-in-law, I think, and that Dave Coulier was his friend. So that whole series is over. It's already happened. Everybody agrees with 100% certainty that's a family show. Everybody will say, I think unilaterally, I think even John would agree with me that it's a family show. Now, if everything else about that show stayed constant, nothing changed, every episode was exactly as it was, and you found out later on down the line that Dave Coulier and Bob Saget were actually a couple in that show, would that suddenly not be a G-rated show anymore as a result of that and that alone. Because that's functionally what he's saying. He's saying, if you find out that a couple or any two people in a relationship are not cisgendered and heterosexual, then suddenly that show, regardless of the content of the show or the context of the representation, it should not be shown to children. So why then? Now the question's why, right? So, because his answer in this instance would be, I think, yes, that should not be no, that shouldn't be a G-rated show anymore. Now it's not a show that children should see. So everything else is constant. The only thing that has changed in this scenario is that the couple, like the two men, are in a relationship. Whether it is or isn't represented on screen or how it's represented, just the fact that that is the case, that means that children shouldn't see it. What's the reason children shouldn't see it? The reason children shouldn't see it from their perspective, I think, he can correct me if I'm wrong, is one of two reasons or possibly both. Reason number one is he just thinks it's wrong, period, full stop, for anybody to see anyone that's gay ever. That's just not a thing that should happen. Nobody should be exposed to that, specifically children. That's just not a thing that anybody should ever be exposed to. The second thing, and I think may be more so the case, and in my experience seems to be the case, is that when it comes to people who aren't cisgendered and heterosexual, the representation that is generally portrayed, or not the representation, what's a better word for this? The way that they are generally attempted to be portrayed by people who are talking about why they shouldn't be seen is that they are perverted, or that they are dangerous, or that they are going to have undue influence, and just them existing and us be as in the cultural awareness is somehow dangerous by virtue of them existing. And if we see more this is why representation is so important, like so desperately important. Is because if we start to see normalized representations that just depict non-cishet people, like people who are gay, people who are trans, people who are ace, just depict them as normal people living their lives who just so happen to have this as a component or aspect of themselves, then that narrative starts to fall apart. We start to go, oh shit, like they're just normal people who are like us in many ways and not like us in this way and maybe some others, but none of them are dangerous. None of them are perverted. None of them are something that we need to be concerned about. And that's private and personal to them and really none of our business. Just like our private and personal relationships aren't anybody else's business either. And we're the same in that fashion. And that is what's dangerous to people like this, is the idea that people are going to go, oh, maybe we shouldn't be scared of these people. Maybe we shouldn't be villainizing these people. Maybe they are just like us. Because the more that happens, the more cultural acceptance happens, and the more difficult it becomes for them to subjugate them. And fucking good. And fucking good. Good. Good, Jon. Good. That's what we want. Just because Doc McStuffings just because a cartoon child doctor had a gay couple on their show doesn't mean that all of the kids are going to be the gay also. So like that's an unwarranted fear. What it does mean is that if a child who is watching it is gay, they go, oh, maybe I don't have to be so afraid of myself. Maybe some of the messages I'm receiving about people like me aren't actually true. And maybe there is a way that I can be happy and exist in society as myself. Wow, that's cool. And like, why wouldn't you want that? Like, why wouldn't you want that? Why are you so dedicated to making sure that people who aren't like you feel as though they don't have a place in a society where you exist? And you call yourselves the moral ones. Just dumbfounding to me. It's utterly dumbfounding to know you're actively harming people and doing your best to make sure you perpetuate it while saying, we're the light and they're the darkness, while talking out of the other side of your mouth about who is and isn't evil. Get a grip.
You see, why do I bring these up? Well, the normalization of gay and lesbian parents and transgender children is just one example of the kind of schemes Paul talks about.
Schemes!
Well, let's go deeper.
So the devil made them gay then, I guess, because the schemes were the devil, right? This is a callback, because the devil does schemes and is a liar. So seeing gay people exist and seeing trans people exist and just letting that happen and being okay with it because they do exist and it is okay is a scheme. It's a scheme. It's a scheme. So but from the devil. So did the devil make them gay then? Did the devil make them trans? Did the devil make Doc McStuffin's writing team like put the characters in? Like where does the devil factor in here? Like it's just so many layers of foolishness that I don't understand. I don't understand how anybody listens to this and goes, yeah, that makes total sense. Yep. Yeah. That's evil. You're right. The devil is totally controlling the pen of the writing team at Doc McStuffin's so that what? Like, do you actually think that children seeing representation is going to make them go, maybe I'll be gay? I wasn't going to be gay before, but now that I know that there's a character on Doc McStuffin's who's gay, then now I'm going to be. Like, it's frigging ridiculous. It's it's so foolish on its face. So foolish on its face.
Well, how do we stand firm in our convictions and in a way that's pleasing to God? How do we resist the lies and deceptions of Satan? Well, Paul,
don't be gay. Like, I emphasized this before in the stream that crashed and burned. Like, just nobody is telling you how to live your life as a Christian. If you want to not be gay and not have abortions and be a Christian, there is absolutely no one trying to stop you. Like, none of us are standing in front of you going, you can't go into church. Go marry that dude over there. And then I would like you to become a woman. And I don't want to hear another word about it. That is not a thing that's happening to anyone. You're bonkers. I calmed myself down. I had to control my words for a moment. I was about to use a word that wasn't kind, but I pulled myself back in. That is not what's happening. What is happening is there's a version of that you're doing. You're saying that people who aren't like you, who don't believe like you, who don't have relationships like you, should be subjugated to the background and should absolutely not be visible and should change. And that anybody who tells you that isn't the case is somehow persecuting you. How do people, so obvious on its face. They're like, if I can't tell people how to live their lives, that's persecution because it's my God-given right to tell people how to live their lives. So I get to decide what's represented. Like, don't let your kid watch Doc McStuffins anymore then. Like, I don't know what to tell you. Gay people exist. So do trans people. So do atheists. All of us exist. And none of us are stopping you from being Christian. The only thing that will stop you from doing is telling us how to live our lives. One of us is doing those things. One of us is trying to tell somebody how to live their lives. One of us isn't. Which one could it be?
Oh, he actually tells us. We just read Ephesians 6. See, Paul tells us how to combat the lies of the enemy that hold the rest of the world captive. He says, therefore, take up the full armor of God so that you will be able to resist in the evil day. And having done everything, he says, stand firm. You see, this is Paul exhorting the Christian to stand firm in opposition to the enemy.
The enemy. We're the enemy. Everybody's not them as the enemy. And they have to stand firm against it. They literally have to fight us. They literally have to tell us how to be. This is why I sometimes, like, he's done, by the way. So now you just have to deal with me. I sometimes go back and forth about making some of this content. I legitimately and seriously do. Because there's aspects of the atheist community even itself that I'm not a fan of, right? Like there's some misogyny in there too. There's some transphobia in there too. There's all kinds of things that I don't like there. So it kind of feels like, you know, clean up your own house before you do anything else. And but this stuff, we're so busy focusing inwards policing sometimes too that we can lose track of the fact that we have like a common goal, which is that this type of rhetoric has a stranglehold on society. Like it absolutely does. Like this channel doesn't have many subscribers and they don't get a lot of views, but the podcast gets millions of views, and the books, millions of people read them. And these are the and they're not alone. They're just a pebble on the beach. There's so many of them. There's so many of them. And there's so many more of them than us. And they have such an ability to actually influence culture. And this new dynamic that, I don't know if dynamic's the right word, but this new rhetoric that they're using, that anybody who attempts to be open about living a life they don't agree with is somehow persecuting them when they say, hey, you can't tell us what to do, when they're not harming anyone. Is it somehow like impinging upon their religious freedoms? It has material repercussions. Like, look at what's happening in Texas right now. Like, trans children in Texas are literally at risk of being torn away from their families if they give them affirming care. If they do, if the parents are loving and caring and informed and supportive enough to do what needs to be done to make that child happy and healthy, the government can literally label that abuse and take them away because of shit like this. It has just such material affect. Maybe this is why Paul asked me to stream instead, because it makes me want to cry. It makes me want to cry. It sucks. Like, it literally sucks. And I don't understand. maybe I'm wired differently. I don't understand how you could have a channel like this where you say with a straight face that we're the ones who need to be strong because we have so many people who we vastly outnumber and have all of the power over that are maybe slightly gaining some ground, and we need to make sure we push them back into the dark because we're the good ones, and what we need to do is just, do our best to make sure that they're invisible or miserable or both. And then go to bed at night and like sleep soundly. Like I couldn't I just couldn't deal with it. I could not deal with it. I couldn't. It sucks. Sorry. I get emotionally affected by this crap. I should have actually done a video. I'll get Paul to edit it for me because let's be clear. I have absolutely... You guys are getting unbridled Shannon too, because I know I'm privating this video and it's going to be edited. So VIP access Shannon right now. But yeah, so I'm just going to ramble for a few minutes. I see there's super chats. I'll read them in a second, but it's frustrating to me. How can you know you hurt people and just be cool about it? And how can you watch people hurt people on such a massive scale and not say anything to them? I mean, I get it because it's a minefield out there. I've had my share of grenades thrown at me from both people I thought who were allies and people I thought were opposition alike, and it's very difficult to navigate, but it's so worth trying at least to do something. I don't know. As helpless as it may feel and as little as it may do, it's at least worth trying, like, or saying something. I don't know what effect I can have. If the effect I have is that there's maybe a trans kid whose parents or a gay child whose parents won't let them watch Doc McStuffins anymore that stumbles across this YouTube video while they're hiding in their room, they can hear that there's people who care about them and think that this is ridiculous and that it shouldn't happen to them and that they should do everything they can to be themselves because they deserve it. They deserve to be able to be themselves, even though it seems insurmountable. I'm such a baby. Such a little fucking baby. Okay, I will read the super chats now. Thank you for sending super chats. And I'm sorry that I know people sent super chats the last stream after my camera went off, and I'm really, really sorry I didn't get to read them. I was panicking. So thank you. I appreciate you. And I am such a bad self-promoter. I have a Patreon and whatever the fuck. Like, dude, if you want to support the channel, go ahead. If you don't, then whatever. Oh, Canadian Catholic. Hi. Why are you for separation of church and state? For the same reason that you should be, because I don't want somebody whose religion doesn't align with my values being the one who's in charge. I want us to be able to have reasonable conversations about how things should go and base them on material reality. I'm assuming you would be against there being a Hindu state. So when people ask that question, it seems like to me they're saying, why are you against Christianity not being the dominant religion that gets to control everything? Canadian Catholic again. I mean, thanks for continuing to give me money, I guess. How do I get saved in your system, Shannon? I don't have a system. And if I did have a system, it wouldn't save people. Save people from what? I'm not threatening anyone. So you don't need to be saved from me and my system. There is no salvation when there is no threat. And I am not threatening anyone, so there's no need for salvation. Hosier Buddy. Hi, Hosier Buddy. Religious freedom means you get to believe however you want, not we have to believe however you make us. Yes! Oh, wow, that's way more articulate than I was throughout this. Thank you. That's exactly right. Oh, Canadian Catholic sent me the same question again. Same answer. One doesn't get saved in my system because there's nothing to save them from because there is no threat. Ollie P, to stop his persecution, he just needs to turn off TV. That's right. Just don't watch Toxic Stuffins anymore. Persecution over. I'm sure people that are really persecuted wish it was that easy. Oh, exactly. Keep being allies. Exactly. That's totally, that's it. You guys are so much more articulate than me right now. This is why I do scripted stuff and have conversations with smarter people so that I can learn from those people and engage in those dialogues or really suss out and parse out my thoughts so that I can make sure that I'm presenting something that's, I am very neurodivergent, so I have lots of streams of consciousness and I'm not very good at hiding my emotions in real time. So me sitting alone in a room isn't always, ideal. Hopefully, despite all of the tech issues, you guys enjoyed the stream. Plural. I'm going to leave the other one up for anybody who came to this one just now. I'm going to leave the other one up for like about an hour or so that you guys can go watch the beginning of it before it gets cobbled together. But within an hour, I'm going to private this one and the first one. Both of them are going to be privated. But anybody who doesn't want to do that, I'm going to cobble them together and post them as just one. And by I mean Paul. I have no technological ability whatsoever to even attempt to accomplish that. Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Paul, if you're listening. For all your help, you got the stream back up as well. So you can see the whole thing probably if I can convince Paul to edit it down instead of just plugging them together because I love him. Probably a more concise version. And when that one's up, if you guys would like to share it around, that would be cool because I'm sure I just destroyed my algorithm for whatever that's worth because I'm such a great YouTuber. The, once a month to 2 times a month that I post. I spend most of my time all over the place on other people's channels doing stuff, volunteering my time, doing like the Lion and the Atheist Experience and going on other people's channels as guests. That's what working my job and parenting the child and all of that stuff. So sorry if I don't put content here as much, but if you did like this, despite the technical difficulties, let me know in the comments section. Those of you who have the VIP access before I private it, I will do more of these, hopefully without the technological issues. And I can refine them as I go and hopefully get a little bit better as I'm learning. I'm more of a conversationalist and less of a monologuer. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for coming for this experiment. I hope that there was some value with it and that you guys enjoyed yourselves and were good to each other in the chat. We like to cultivate a good community here. Don't be jerks to each other. That's my one rule. And as always, everyone, help elevate the discourse.